In this video we're going to talk about percent. So what does the percent sign mean? Well, it means 1 over 100. And you can see the ingredients in the symbol itself. It's division by 0, 0. That's the way to think of it. It's 1 over 100. So that means if someone shows you 5% and you want to convert that to a fraction or a number, you think that's 5 times 1 over 100. So wherever you see the percent, you just put 1 over 100. But you can rewrite that as, remember when we're multiplying fractions, we think of this 5 as being 5 over 1. So this is the same as 5 over 100. And if we want to express that as a decimal, we remember that whenever we divide by 100, or whenever we divide by a 0, we take the decimal point, which is right here. You know, it's implicit. That's the decimal point. This is really 5.0. For every 0 here, we kick that decimal point one space towards the front. So as a decimal, this is going to be 0.05. So we took our decimal point was here and we kicked it towards the front. And I'll put a little D there. So every time you divide by 0, you take the decimal point and you push it towards the front. So remember this little symbol. If you get confused whether you go to the front or the back, when we're dividing, we go in this direction. Let me see if I can get a little arrow in there. I'm not too good with my pen here, but that's the idea. So dividing by 100 is 2 kicks to the front, or 2 divides, 2 D's towards the front. And similarly, if you're shown, let's say any number, let's say 18%, and you want to convert that to a decimal, well, the easiest thing to do is convert it to a decimal. So you say this is 18 and over 100. I'm going to skip this middle step here. It's pretty clear what's going on. And then again, if we want to convert that to a decimal, we take our decimal point and we kick it towards the front 2 places. So this is going to be 0.18. Now, of course, we can also express that as a fraction, which it is back here, and then reduce it. So, for instance, we can divide the top and the bottom by 2, and this would be an equivalent fractional representation of that percent, dividing the top and the bottom by 2. All right, well, that seems so simple. You know, why spend so much time on going through it in this very meticulous way? Well, it's easy to get confused when you see things that are a little unusual. So suppose, for instance, I showed you 1/3 of a percent. A lot of people would get confused. They say, well, I've got a third already. That's already a fraction. How? I've got a fraction and a percent, something crazy there. But it's not. You know, you just do what you always do with percents. You write it as 1/3. And remember what percent means. It means 1 over 100. So that is the same as 1 over 300. So again, just remember this. The percent sign means 1/100. So here I have a percent. I just replace it by 1 over 100 and then apply the usual rules of mathematics. So again, here's another one. Suppose I give you 250%. Again, some people might be confused because you think percentages are fractions. At least that's what we've seen up here. These have all been fractions. But a percent doesn't have to be a fraction. You follow the rule, and the rule says that this is the same as 250 divided by 100, and you can reduce that or express it as a decimal. Let's first express it as a decimal. Remember our rule for division. We take the decimal point, which is here implicitly at the very end, and we kick it 2 places to the front. So this is 2.50. And of course we can also express that as a fraction. We divide the top and the bottom by 10 for starters, and that'll give us 25 over 10. And we say, well, I've got another common factor. I can divide the top and the bottom by 5, so I get 5 over 2. And of course we recognize 5 over 2 as 2.5. So again, remember this simple rule. A percent means 1 over 100. If you always apply this procedure, you won't get into trouble. Suppose, for instance, I show you 33 and 1/3%. Again, a lot of people would get confused. In fact, I used to get confused. So, but if you just follow the rule, don't think about it too much, just write this as 33 1/3 times 1/100th, and then you do the usual things. This is a mixed number, and we're multiplying a mixed number times a fraction, so we first want to convert our mixed number into a fraction. And remember how you do that. This is really a common denominator situation, but the shorthand way is just take the 3 times the 33 plus 1. Let me say that again. You take this 3 down here, multiply it times the 33 plus 1, and put it over the common denominator 3. So that's going to become altogether 100 over 3 times 1 over 100. And now the hundreds cancel. So that is just equal to 1/3, which we might have suspected at the very beginning. But again, don't be thrown off by the fact that you have a mixed number here. If you follow the rule, you'll get to the right place. Now, here's another situation that I've seen people have problems with. Suppose you have something like 0.024, just to make up a number, percent. Again, a lot of people, beginners, would say, ooh, what do you mean? I already got somehow that's a percent in there and another percent. What are you trying to pull on me here? Well, you're not trying to pull anything. You just follow the rule. This is 0.024 times 1/100th, but let me combine that in one step. That's divided by 100. And we know how to divide by 100, or what we need to do to convert this whole thing into a decimal. We take this decimal point and we kick it 2 places to the front. So if we do that, it's going to be here, and it's going to be 0, 0. We have to add some places, and we just repeat the rest. So what I did was my decimal place started here, and since I'm dividing by 100, I kicked it. Let's see if I can do it. Having trouble with my pen here. I'm not real good at this. So again, I'm going to write this little DD. I divided by 0, 0 is the way I'm thinking. I'm really dividing by 100, of course. But remember this little symbol. You kick it to the front when you're dividing. You push it to the other side when you're multiplying. So let's look at something like that. Suppose we have, well, let's go the other way. Suppose we have 0.018, and I want to express that as a percent. So you think, well, if I want to express it as a percent, I have to see 100 in the bottom. So I just write it in the bottom. You can always make what you want. There it is. But of course I changed everything when I divided by 100, so I have to also multiply by 100. All right, and now think of this as a fraction. It's a crazy looking fraction, but it's a decimal point over 100, but still use the same rule. You're going to multiply the top and the bottom, and when you multiply by 100, what do you do to the decimal point? Well, let's remember it this way. We actually push it in the other direction. So I'm going to do that on top. When we're multiplying, we go in this direction. So this is going to be 1.8 over 100. Remember what we did? We wanted to see 100 in the bottom, so I stuck it in there, but then I had to multiply by 100 to compensate for the fact that I put 100 in there. And multiplying by 100 means pushing the decimal point towards the front. So that's where I get this 1.8. And now, once it's over 100, you can just express that as percent. So, going back here, if you can do it all in your head in one step, it's pretty simple. You're basically taking the decimal point and pushing it towards the front and then tacking a percent sign on. So the pushing it towards the front is multiplication by 100. Tacking the percent sign on is division by 100. So those two operations counteract one another. Let's look at a couple more of those. Let's go the other way again. Let's suppose I give you the number. Whoop, what am I doing here? Let's see. Suppose I give you the number 2.4 and say express that as a percent. Express that as a percent. So I'll go through the step-by-step procedure one more time, then we'll do it sort of a shorthand fashion. So you think, I want to see 100 on the bottom. Well, no problem. I take what I'm given there, and I put 100 on the bottom. But you can't just do that. You also have to compensate by putting 100 on the top. And then you multiply the top, and remember, when we're multiplying, we go in this direction, and I'm going to always put the multiplication bumps up here. So let me actually put a little M there just to help us remember which way to go. I get confused, so maybe you get confused too. So when we're all done, this is 240 over 100, but we know when we see over 100, we can express that over 100 as just the percent sign, because that's what percent means. Percent means over 100. So 2.4 is the same as 240%. Now let's do one more like that. We'll do it without all the intervening steps. If I want to convert that to a percent, I think I'm going to want to put a percent sign on there, so I got to compensate by multiplying by 100. If I stick a percent sign on there, I'm implicitly saying divide by 100. You can't just do that. You also have to multiply by 100. So that means you have to take that decimal point and push it to the front. And again, I'm going to do that up top. So this division by 100 undoes the multiplication by 100. They're compensating operations, so 130% is the same as 1.3. Let's do one more like that. This is the kind of situation that I used to get confused with. Let's suppose you had this and you want to convert it to a percentage. Well, again, you say, I'm just going to divide by 100, or equivalently stick a percent sign on this thing. But if I stick a percent sign on it, I'm dividing by 100. So I have to compensate by multiplying by 100. So if I multiply, remember that's our top jump towards the front, I'm going to end up with 0.2 Let's do a few going the other way. Now let's do an easy one first of all. 15% was sort of the recommended tip amount, or it used to be probably. My wife tells me it's more now, but I still believe it's 15%. As a fraction, again, we see that percent and we want to get rid of it. That's how you convert it to a fraction. But getting rid of the percent is like multiplying by 100, so you have to divide by 100 to compensate. So you take the decimal point and you move it two places. It's here implicitly, and you go boom. You're going to go bink, bink, and there it is. So that's easy, 15%. What about, we don't want that there. What about 6.25%? Well, remember the rule. If I'm dividing by 100, that's what this percent sign means, and I want to get rid of it, I have to divide by 100. So in other words, I have to take this decimal point and push it this way. Getting rid of the percent sign is like multiplying by 100. So to compensate for that, I have to divide by 100. So I push the decimal point towards the front 2 kicks. So it's going to be 1 kick and 2 kicks. So when I'm all done, it's going to be 0.0625. So I don't know about you, but I can get confused in that situation. But again, look at it. You look at it over here. You say the big part is 6%, and this over here is pretty clear. That's 6%, so it looks right. But let's do one more where it's not so easy to see. So you have 0.0000145 just to make up a number. And that's a percent, and you want to convert that to a number. Well, remember, percent means divide by 100. So if I get rid of the percent, I'm going to have to divide by 100. And division means push this thing towards the front. So I go 1, 2. And so it's going to be, I'll just repeat the number that I have, 0.00145. Now I'm going to take my decimal point and push it 1, 2 towards the front. So that means I have to stick in an extra 0 and an extra 0 and at my decimal point. So I think that's enough about the basics of percentages. In the next module, we'll talk about how to do discounts and interest rates and that sort of thing.